The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the OSIP Foundation Incorporated or any other group or individual. This podcast may contain dialogue or subject material that could be considered for mature audiences only. All aspects of how you play the game and the OSIP Foundation Incorporated are protected by copyright and other state and federal intellectual property laws. Unauthorized use without the express written consent of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated is strictly prohibited. If you're interested in sponsoring How You Play the Game, please email us at podcast@osipfoundation.org. Your sponsorship may be tax deductible. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of How You Play the Game, the official podcast of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated. Yours truly, Jack Furlong, as we talk to you about what's going on as far as the world of sportsmanship is concerned. This is the second episode of the month of May. The year is 2024. As always, check us out online at osipfoundation.org. If you'd like to contact the show via email, use the address podcast@osipfoundation.org. On social media, we're at facebook.com/osipfoundation, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at osipfoundation, hashtag how you play the game. A couple of small things we want to do real quick before we get into our main topic, even though this is a short monologue episode. First and foremost, a big welcome back to our good friend Chris Conroy. He finally got back out on the field with this Yankees-Astros series in the Bronx after the rehab that he's been doing with his herniated disc. You may remember all of that from the interview that we did with him earlier this year. He has finally made it back out onto the field after more than a year. So our hats off to Chris for surviving the rehab and everything, and we're just so happy that he's happy and healthy back out there, etc. I briefly spoke with him. He's ecstatic. So all the best to Chris, continued health and success, and I'm sure he'll be jubilant about it when we talk to him again this offseason. Secondly, a reminder that we have our second annual OSIP Gala fundraiser coming up on Sunday, June 2nd, from 6 to 10 p.m. at the Hopewell Valley Golf Course in beautiful Hopewell, New Jersey. Tickets are $100 each. There are only 100 tickets available, so we do recommend that you get your tickets now before they go. It is a black tie preferred event. Don't go out and spend money you don't have to get a tuxedo, but if you have it and you want it, do it, etc. Silent auction is going to be there. There's going to be entertainment. There's going to be a buffet, open and cash bar, all these different things. Really hope that you can join us. To get tickets to that, go to osipfoundation.org/gala. There are even some items that will be up for bids at the silent auction already listed there, so you can see some of the great items. A lot of signed merchandise. It's going to be a wonderful time, so we really, truly hope that you can join us for that as well. Now, the thing I want to talk about today is something I never thought that I would have to discuss. I never thought it would happen, but it happened. And when it did happen, I wanted to make sure that I gave it time to breathe, to gather facts rather than just react, but I wanted to make sure that I got everything, and that is the first career ejection of Aaron Judge. Let me begin also by saying I'm going to be using language here because there was some language that was used in this story. So if language offends you, just be prepared, turn this off, whatever the case may be. Okay. Now, the reason that this is shocking is because Aaron Judge, as we all know, is a pretty stand-up guy, class guy, captain of the Yankees, and to watch him be ejected on this past weekend, which would have been if I'm looking at calendars, which are just diagrams and dates, it was actually Star Wars Day, Saturday, May the 4th, and the Yankees were playing the Tigers. And he was ejected in the 7th inning by home plate umpire Ryan Blakeney. So let's kind of go over what happened first, and then we'll talk about everything. Judge struck out looking on a 3-2 pitch that was on the outside corner, just above the knees. Blakeney rung him up on strikes. Judge, who was trying to kind of walk to first before it happened, stopped, turned around, and looked at Blakeney and said, "Man, that's bullshit." And then he said, "Bullshit all day." And that's when Blakeney ejected him. And that's when there was this, confrontation and whatnot, but never escalated beyond that, Aaron Boone and Aaron Judge both approached Blakeney about it. Crew chief Alan Porter came down from third to kind of break things up, etc. And they moved on. The one thing I do want to get out of the way before is what happened shortly after the ejection was that there was a foul ball that went off the mask of Ryan Blakeney, and the crowd at Yankee Stadium cheered for that. And before I dive into any of this, I am appalled as a Yankee fan that other Yankee fans would cheer for this injury. Now, Blakeney's okay. He stayed in the game. It was nothing. Okay? But I learned a long time ago cheering for injuries is not a good thing. I learned that when I was a kid. And, I say that because, when you're a kid, you make mistakes and whatnot, and you try and learn from it and move on. And I feel like, I've done that. So to cheer, for adults to cheer for the injury of an umpire because of the ejection of Aaron Judge is shameful. There's no place for that. And if you cheered for that injury, I just feel sorry for you, because that's not cool. That is not cool at all. I would never endorse that. I don't think OSIP would endorse that, and I don't have other words to say about it, because I am speechless by the fact that humanity would stoop that low. But moving on, the ejection actually was warranted, and the reason for that is because, as Alan Porter said to a pool reporter after the game, there are some things that people just cannot say to umpires, and those things will cause an immediate ejection. And Porter made it a point to say, look, we try very hard to keep the players in the game. We understand that those are the things, the people paid money to see the players, et cetera. So all of those, the right things were said. But he said, look, you just can't say what he said. And the thing that he said, which got him in trouble, was when he said bullshit all game, because essentially what that means is you have been bullshit all game. And the word "you" is the trigger. There, as we've talked about before, there is a difference between saying that's fucking bullshit and you're fucking bullshit. When a player, coach, whomever says that's fucking bullshit, they're referring to the call. They're referring to the fact that they disagree with the call. And umpires are trained to say you're allowed to disagree with it. Whether it's going to stand, okay, but you're allowed to disagree with it. What you're not allowed to do is question the integrity of the official. And that's what Judge did when he said bullshit all game, because that inferred you've been bullshit all game. If you try and make the other argument where you're saying that's been bullshit all game, that's kind of a hard argument to make. And in terms of human umpires, they are trained and they will naturally respond the way that Blakeney did. You want to have a problem with the call? Have a problem with the call. Do not question my integrity. And that right there is what caused the ejection. Boone and Judge both after the game said they didn't think the ejection was warranted, but unfortunately they are incorrect, because when you say something like that, it becomes a foregone conclusion that it will happen. Judge said that he has said worse to umpires. Credit to Judge, because he did say, I'm not a fan of, getting ejected. I've never been ejected before in my life in anything. He came out and said, I have a lot of respect for Ryan Blakeney and the umpires. They have a very difficult job, and I'll always have their back. He was remorseful that he was ejected late in the game when, his team may need him. So all of those things combined are good. But the other part of this that needs to be examined is the fact that we have this tendency as humans to put these role models up on pedestals And this is an example of where that person can be knocked off the pedestal and we can become disappointed. There's a philosopher that I read many moons ago, and I briefly talked to him about it. He's a college professor, but I read him from an essay that he wrote in the book Seinfeld and Philosophy, and he was talking about the moral makeup of the characters in Seinfeld, which in this philosophy text was talking about how they're actually horrible people. And this philosopher, his name is Aon Scoble, and he had a great quote in the book where he said, if we were smart enough to pick the right role models, perhaps we would be smart enough to realize that we don't need role models. Now, psychologically speaking, role models do play an important part because that's how we learn. The human condition is such where as we learn how to act, and how to grow and improve and whatnot, there is this need to observe, comprehend, and then imitate that plays a major part in our learning. I mean, you just look at the way that the behavior of others around us, whether it be parents or teachers or whatever, gets imprinted on us, and that is what kind of forms us as we grow. So there is a place for that, but in this term, the idea of role model is to say that this person is perfect, and we should strive to be like this person. And then when something like this happens, we're like, wait a second, maybe we're forgetting that this person is a human being and is prone to mistakes, and that is exactly what happened here. By contrast, what creates some real dissonance here is the fact that Derek Jeter, as Yankee captain, was never ejected in his career. The closest he ever came to an ejection occurred on a tag play at third base where Marty Foster almost ejected him, but Joe Girardi, when he was managing the Yankees, got out there and took the heat for Jeter, and he got ejected. This is before replay, so it was a little bit of a different scenario. But Jeter was never ejected in his career, okay? And the last ejection by a Yankee captain was Don Mattingly back in, I think, 1994 when Tim McClellan got him. So it's been a while. So the question becomes, well, what are we supposed to do with this information? How are we supposed to act and whatnot? The answer is pretty simple. It's, first of all, understand that even our athletes are human beings. They're prone to mistakes. They're not perfect. Things like this will happen. We've almost been spoiled by someone like a Derek Jeter, because now we would think that these Yankee captains are immune to this stuff. But Judge clearly was in the wrong here. We also don't know if Judge ever apologized to Blakeney or anything like that. We don't really hear about that stuff behind the scenes. If you read a lot of the forums on this kind of stuff, a lot of the comments on this were kind of like right down the middle, where a lot of these people were saying, could Blakeney have let this one go? Yeah, he could have, because not that this stuff should be transactional, because it creates a different set of circumstances, but with the stock that Aaron Judge has built as a good dude and whatnot, and supporting umpires and yada yada yada, it's possible that Blakeney could have just said, I got to let this one go because I don't want to be the guy who ejects Aaron Judge. That's certainly possible. But at the same time, those same people are also saying, but Judge did cross a line, so it was bound to happen. There were people who were calling for discipline of Blakeney and this, that, the other. And the fact of the matter is that no, there will be no discipline. And even if there were, that discipline will not be announced publicly, because if you get disciplined at work, do you think that the whole company needs to know it? I mean, it's a private thing between you and the employer. You know what I mean? As you scroll through Twitter and other social media feeds, I guess it's now called X, of course, you will see the immediate reaction of fans who are just completely insulted by the fact that Judge was ejected, calling for Blakeney's head. Essentially, I mean, it was as I was kind of scrolling through it in real time, and I was like, this ain't good. It continues to speak to the idea that we really still have a lot of work to do in terms of sportsmanship, in terms of the climate of our society, and how that relates to what happens on the field of competition and how we root for teams, etc. There were a lot of bad things that were said. Media members were kind of doing the same thing. You know, the idea of basically just defending Aaron Judge. We because of the teams for which we root and the players that we support, we think that they can do no wrong. And this was a great example of a time when something wrong was done. Thankfully, it was minor in comparison. You know, he didn't kill anyone. Okay, he didn't threaten anyone. He didn't commit a crime. So. It's just one of those things where we all kind of need to take a step back and see it for what it is. And in my personal experience, as I'm going through all of this, first of all, I could not believe that it was happening, but I had the wherewithal to say, okay, I got to hear what everyone says before I make an opinion. And sure enough, thanks to some of the lip reading that was done and the reporting that was done, interviewing Judge, interviewing Alan Porter, etc., we were able to gather enough evidence and make a pretty strong puzzle come together as one and figure out what happened and whether or not it was justified. And it was certainly more justified than what we had talked about before with Hunter Wendelstedt and Aaron Boone. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I know I'm always an umpire supporter. I recognize that. And I recognize that there is certainly a cogent argument to be made about maybe Aaron Judge should not have been ejected. Maybe Blakeney should have let this one go. But this isn't a smoking gun. This is not an open and shut case. This is something where he crossed a line and he had to pay the penalty for it. I don't wish it to him. I don't want to see vengeance. I'm just trying to observe this as someone in my position. Prior to this, I was guilty enough of putting Aaron Judge up on that pedestal. I was a big Judge fan because of that kind of stuff, and now I look at this a little differently. I say, wow, this guy's reputation is a little tarnished, just a teeniest bit. But it's a reminder that these people are all human beings and prone to mistakes. I felt the same way about Derek Jeter after he had retired, especially after that documentary about him came out on ESPN, The Captain. What I learned about him was, just more about his personality and how defensive he can be and whatnot. And that put him in a different light for me. I learned a lot about all of these people. These people, I used Don Mattingly and Derek Jeter and Aaron Judge as people to whom I would hold to these high standards as a Yankee fan. And this whole thing is just a reminder that these are human beings, prone to make mistakes, and perhaps it's on me as a fan to observe this a little differently and think about this in a way that's more introspective, as opposed to saying, no, it's everyone else's fault. Can't be Judge's fault. As if I'm projecting myself onto Aaron Judge and then, outwardly deflecting any sort of criticism that might come his way. That's not the case. Okay? This needs to be an introspective thing. And that's, I think, the best way to go about this is to say, look, Aaron Judge made a mistake. And this is a reminder that even the people that we put up on those pedestals are human beings and are going to make mistakes. And it's up to us as the fans to adjust to that. Okay? It's about us making the adjustment and realizing that these are imperfect people. And it's not about watching Judge fall from grace here. It's about the reminder that Judge was never meant to be up there, and these people were never meant to be up there, and we were the ones who put them there. And rather than feeling shame or guilt as if we were meant to do that, or we should never have done that, it's just a reminder that we just need to do a little bit of a better job with that. That's all it is. That's really all it is. Well, I hope you had a good time listening to this discussion. Once again, we really hope to see you at the gala on June 2nd. It's going to be a fantastic night, and please buy your tickets now. If you're going to donate to our silent auction or would like to sponsor the event or donate tickets to those who otherwise cannot afford it, all of it's good. You can do it all, everything, at osipfoundation.org/gala. Be sure to check us out there. Contact the show at podcast@osipfoundation.org, facebook.com/osipfoundation, X and Instagram @osipfoundation, #HowYouPlayTheGame. We will talk to you at the beginning of June. Everybody take care and treat each other with respect. How You Play the Game is a production of the OSIP Foundation, Incorporated. The producer-engineer of this episode is Sean Ryan. Music by Soundspring Studio. The executive producer of How You Play the Game is Jack Furlong. For more information, visit osipfoundation.org.